Joining us for today's conversation about maternal health is Texas State Representative Donna Howard, who represents House District 48 here in the Austin area. Representative Howard, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Today, we're talking about maternal health, and you are the perfect person for this conversation as chair of the House Women's Health Caucus.
And as a woman.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. You got us there. But you've been on the podcast in the past talking about your faith and the important role it has in shaping the way you think about public policy. So as we have this conversation today, I wanted to start by thinking about why this is so important to you, especially with so many Texans of faith throughout Texas caring about this issue. Why is this topic so important to you, besides the fact that you're a woman, obviously?
And a mother and a grandmother, yes.
Right.
You know, I can't imagine that it wouldn't be something that would be important to everyone.
Right.
We're talking about the people who are oftentimes the glue of the family, certainly are the ones that birth all of us. It takes two to tango.
Right.
But it is the women who are front and center in taking care of our families. And so, that's number one. And then I think really what brought me to it so much at the legislature is that a couple of years after I came into session, it was the 2010 election when the Tea Party took over. And there was a real affront on women's health care.
Right.
And so starting in 2011, we had significant cuts to women's health care. In fact, 2/3, not only to Planned Parenthood, which was their target, but to faith-based programs,
right,
to academic programs, to federally qualified health centers. We lost over 80 clinics. And the fact that politics and ideology would get in the way of women getting the health care they needed to take care of themselves and their families was just mind-boggling to me. And
right.
I think that's really what motivated me to get ultra involved in it at that time. And it's just been, every session after that, there's been more and more assaults on women's access to health care.
Yeah, and you've certainly been a leader on this issue for years. And I think the assumption is coming into this session that there would be an assault, right? Like post-obs, the rhetoric. But there is kind of a glass half empty, half full, and maybe not quite half full. But there were some good things that happened this legislative session for maternal health. The headliner of that obviously being House Bill 12.
Right.
So we did make some progress. Talk some about the progress that you were able to make this session.
Yeah, well, absolutely. House Bill 12 finally got across the finish line. Yes. We tried to pass that couple of sessions, and then last session the Senate knocked it down from 12 months postpartum to 6 months postpartum, and we never got federal approval for that. So
can you remind us, I know I came in with the jargon saying House Bill 12. What does that bill do?
And good, because I don't always remember the bill numbers myself, but this was an important one. Right now, when women are on Medicaid for their pregnancies, they are kicked off of Medicaid 2 months postpartum. It has been a recommendation of our Maternal Mortality and Morbidity Committee for years that the number one thing we need to do to protect moms, to keep them from dying, is to ensure they have health care coverage for at least a year postpartum.
Right.
That's been the real impetus for pushing for this. So we only got to 6 months last time. It was never approved. This time finally got the 12 months approved. I will say politically that I think we found ourselves in a position where some of my Republican colleagues in particular who had supported the restrictions on access to abortion and the absolute overturning of the access to abortion with our trigger ban, that they wanted to also show that they were supportive of women and supportive of moms. And, that's fine with me, however we get there. I'm glad they're supportive of moms, and we finally got this done. But that was absolutely one of the best things that happened. I also got the bill passed after 4 sessions to make period products and diapers and all kinds of other apparel that's required for maternity and postpartum, for nursing. We got that to pass and eliminate the sales tax. Again, we've had opportunities before,
right,
and it didn't happen, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to do it now. And being on appropriations, I was also able to advocate for and get more funding into the budget for women's health care. So we significantly increased the amount of funds for our Healthy Texas Women's Program and our family planning program, as well as others. So those are some of the highlights of the good.
Yeah, I appreciate your leadership on that. You certainly did some incredible work along with your colleagues. So there was some progress, but also on the other side of the equation, post-Dobbs, there's been a lot of harm,
Yes.
and I know women are scared. The legislature did take some noticeable steps backward. So I want to talk about some of those.
Yeah, well, we came into this session with, I think it was like 61 bills that had been filed dealing with abortion, and only one of them actually passed, which was really not a bill about abortion. It was more about the Alternatives to Abortion program and to codify that program, which we can talk about more if you want to. But quite frankly, we came into this session having heard multiple stories about those who wanted their pregnancies and had complications, but because of the way the law had been written, restricting access to abortion, doctors were hesitant to intervene and use their medical judgment to give the best treatment to their patients because they were threatened with liability in terms of high fees, losing their license, and actually going to jail even up to life.
Right.
So it was a significant problem that we could have addressed. That, as well as I think you would see in any surveys that have been done, the majority of Texans want to have an exception for rape and incest. So both of those were issues that we came into this session thinking we were going to have some support for based on some of the rhetoric, even from Governor Abbott in the previous interim. But that didn't happen. We didn't get a hearing on any of those bills. We have one significantly positive thing that happened, and it addresses to a limited extent what physicians can do to intervene in medical emergency complications with pregnancies. And that was a bill that Representative Ann Johnson from Houston was able to pass under the radar. It did not refer to abortion. It just talked about the fact that physicians would not be able. It's a affirmative defense if they intervene with ectopic pregnancies and with ruptured membranes. So 2 of the many complications that can happen, but that was an important first step to at least have some protection for our physicians and our hospitals to make sure they actually can take care of these folks and not, as physicians told me, wait until they start dying before they could actually treat them.
Yeah, one of the themes of the session on this topic was inaction, which you've named. And certainly doctors were begging for clarification on laws. So what do you wish would happen there, and how do we get there next session?
Yeah, well, we worked with the physicians, with the College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, to try to make sure we had the proper language in there to clarify. It's not so prescriptive. They don't want it to be so prescriptive that we're listing every single possible thing that could happen because those can change over time.
Right.
But primarily it was making sure that the language is there to say that physicians would be able to use their best medical judgment and that was up to them to make that determination. Hopefully we can build on what Representative Johnson did and can add to that next session. But I'm also hopeful that there will be some more activity, maybe from the electorate, that will demand that we do certain things and we take more actions next time. We continue to have these stories about the tragic things that are happening to families as a result of this law. And I think those are going to continue to be out there. Mm-hmm. And so the more and more people realize that this restriction on abortion applies to so many other things, that there's, I think, hopefully going to be a demand from the public that we need to correct this. We need to make sure that we're allowing physicians to treat their patients.
Yeah. Our listeners like homework, and as chair of the House Women's Health Caucus, I wonder if you can share some thoughts on how listeners and Texans of faith throughout the state, what can we do? What can they do to help enhance and protect maternal health and women's health throughout Texas?
Well, I want to thank the listeners that were involved this last legislative session, because I know that there were efforts made to testify, to write letters to the editor, to write op-eds in support of women's health care. And I think those make a difference. It keeps moving the needle. We need the voices, and the voices of the faith community in particular, I think, to come forward. This is such an issue in terms of how different faiths approach women's health care, that we don't want to cede it to any one faith community. It should be something that we all contribute to, those of faith and those of no faith community. But the fact is, we all have a role to play here. It's something that we all need to be lending our voices to. So I would appreciate people continuing to do that. I would appreciate people talking about this issue as elections start to ramp up, and making sure that when you are considering candidates, that you consider what they're going to do to support women's health care. I think that's some of the most important things that can be done. And obviously, vote.
Right. Yeah, this is one of those issues where the faith community, I feel like, or many people in the faith community, were silent on the issue pre-Dobbs.
Yeah.
And post-Dobbs have felt like they needed to speak out more and use their platforms more often. What's your messaging as you're talking with especially elected representatives, but also candidates for office during the interim?
You know, it's kind of a balancing act in a sense, because right now, anyway, there's nothing that we can do I'm in the minority party, cannot change what has happened. That's not going to occur for a period of time until whoever's at the Capitol is changed.
Right.
So I can push back, but I can only push back so much and expect that I'm going to get some positive outcome from that.
Right.
I'm balancing that with protecting what I can, with damage mitigation, with making sure that we take advantage, as we talked about earlier, of the notion that my colleagues want to show that they support women and families. Then let's put our money where your mouths are and make sure that we're supporting them actually for sure and getting the access to health care that they need. Mentioning, I also talk about contraceptives, that we need to be talking about what are we doing to help families make the decisions they need to make in a way that they won't need to have an abortion. I've had legislation for multiple sessions, and it still did not get across the finish line this time, to provide reimbursement to the state for our CHIP clients who get contraceptives. We are one of only 2 states that does not do that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And this is in a state, and we're talking about teens, but they have to have parental approval to do this. But we have one of the highest rates of teen pregnancy in the nation and the highest rate of repeat teen pregnancy in the nation. And we can't get that bill over the finish line. I will give a shout out to Representative Ardez from El Paso. She was able to get the bill passed that allows for the purchasing of a 12-month supply of contraceptives. When you have people having to go back every month or every couple of months, whatever the limit was on how much they could have, and they're rural area, or they have families that they'd have to take off work to drive to get there, this ensures that they have a year's supply, which can also help them with their family planning. But bottom line is, the message is, let's really support women and families. That means making sure that they have access to the health care they need, that they have access to child care, that they are being paid equally for equal work. The list goes on and on.
Right.
And you know, we have more women in the legislature than we've ever had before, but it's still 30-something% maybe, and we are 51% of the population.
Right.
We need to have more women running for office and making a difference, I hope. But want the men, obviously want them there too. They're a part of this. But it really is, the message really is, let's not just talk pro-life. Let's actually act pro-life and support Texas families from womb to tomb is what we talk about, and making sure that we trust women too.
Yeah.
and trust that their decisions and trust that they're going to make the best decisions for themselves and their families.
Well, we appreciate your leadership this past legislative session, going back many sessions, and really appreciate the progress you were able to make this time and look forward to even more next legislative session.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time today. Any shameless plugs you'd like to leave us with today?
Well, you can support the House Women's Health Caucus. We actually do take contributions, and it actually does require some funding for us to do the work that we do. So that will be my shameless plug for today.
All right. Representative Howard, really appreciate the time. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.